You've been on the record saying you think you're going to get decent economic growth very quickly. Quite a lot of economists' eyes pop out when they hear you say that. But if you don't get it, and that must be a realistic possibility, you're going to be presiding over some spending plans which economists' eyes also pop out over. Are you really going to implement them?
Firstly, on growing the economy, look, I recognise that will take time. I do think
you said very quickly the other day.
It will take time to get the growth that we need, but we can do things very quickly to get growth moving in the right direction.
That wasn't quite what you said before.
In order to get the economy growing, which is desperately needed, you need a clear strategy. Because of the conversations we've had with business, we're right across the detail of what the challenges are. We can roll up our sleeves and start doing that straight away.
So you want to move quickly, but you acknowledge you might not get growth very quickly, which means those spending totals that have been put in the plans by this government, 4% every year cuts in unprotected services on top of years of austerity, you're going to preside over those?
Well,
you'd do that if the revenue wasn't coming in from growth.
The challenge you're putting to me is just how badly damaged this economy is going to be.
Well, I was actually being a little more specific and asking whether you'd implement
If
those.
we're privileged enough to come into power, then we're going to sadly inherit a badly damaged
You would preside
economy.
over those sorts of
austerity
measures.
What I'm not going to do is make promises that we can't keep. I absolutely want to make sure our public services are properly funded. But I would go further than that, because I know from having run a public service, you can put more money in the top and get a slightly better product, but you've also got to reform to get a materially better product.
Because when you talk about public sector reform, we've seen a little bit of ankle from West Streeting on NHS.
On the NHS.
But I'd like to ask you about more broadly. Tony Blair used to say he had the scars on his back from public sector reform. Do you expect to have scars on your back at the end of all of this? Will you do the unfinished business that Tony Blair talked about from his third term? For instance, on road pricing, stuff like that.
As for scars on my back, I'm absolutely sure I will have scars on my back, because this is unfinished business from the last Labour government.
Same agenda? Similar agenda?
No, we will have our own reform agenda. But I know...
which bits of it are different?
I'll give you an example in health, because we...
No, I said I wanted other examples, because we've just heard about health recently, and I'm not clear about what happens in all these other areas where Tony Blair was adamant. He wished he'd gone further, faster.
Well, reform of our public service is absolutely essential.
Yeah, I'm asking what it is.
What it is, I mean, health is a good example, but it applies to other public services. We need much more use of digital and data sharing within the NHS. Go across to criminal justice, and we've been battling for years to have IT and data exchange between police forces and prosecutors and courts. Basic stuff that needs to change. Much better use of technology that will make a material difference. But there's also a question of where the public services are delivered. You know, I want them to be closer to people in their communities, preventative measures taken, particularly when it comes to health. It's intolerable that we have the children, the single most common cause of an admission into hospital for a child between 6 and 10 is to have their teeth taken out because of teeth decay. That is intolerable, and we need to change it.
Because we had this extraordinary new public health reform, the smoking ban that goes up by year, which you led Labour through the lobbies supporting, even though it was Rishi Sunak's idea, you supported it. But quite a lot of people who looked at it thought, even some of your own MPs I heard who were voting for it, were looking at it and thinking, actually, is this actually bad law? Trying to distinguish between a 31-year-old and a 32-year-old in law and give them different rights.
This was Rishi Sunak's sort of flagship policy at his conference, The Great Reformer, and he can't even get his own party behind it. And frankly, if we hadn't supported it, it would be dead in the water already.
Is it good law?
We should be supporting it, because gradually, bit by bit, brings about the ban that we need.
I want to ask you not about what's affecting the inquiry into Angela Rayner at the moment, but the way you're dealing with it. Because some people have been scratching their heads. They heard you say before, when you watched Boris Johnson deal with certain ministers in certain ways, that you weren't going to operate like that. You'd be different. But they're slightly baffled that you've said you've had some people look into what happened with Angela Rayner, but you haven't looked at it yourself. You've taken their word for it that she's in the clear.
Standards in public life really matter to me, as I think you know, have done for a very, very long time. So what I want to be assured is Angela Rayner answering all the relevant questions, which she is? Is she prepared to answer any further questions from the police or the tax authorities that are?
I'm asking you specifically about the evidence. Why aren't you looking at the evidence?
Has she taken legal advice? I wanted to be sure she'd taken legal advice.
Yes, you get all sorts of legal advice. Why don't you want to look at that legal advice? Lots of people don't understand why you're not looking at it. You say it's there, it's in your office, it's in an envelope.
It's not necessary. It's advice to Angela Rayner about her tax affairs. It's not necessary for me to look at that advice.
Well, as Prime Minister, it would be. You're the ultimate arbiter as Prime Minister. You'll have to do things like that. You'll have to open the envelope and look at the stuff.
Look,
why don't you want to look at this envelope?
Angela's been very clear that she will answer any question put to her by the police or by the tax authorities. She'll cooperate. Now, that is a process that is going on.
I want to know why you don't want to look at the evidence, because people are puzzled. If you're the sort of Prime Minister that you say you want to be, very hard on these sorts of things, very tough on these sorts of things, you're going to have to look at the evidence.
Well, look, the questions I'd ask myself as Prime Minister in relation to any one of my team is, are they giving full answers to the allegations that are put to her? Are they giving full answers? Yes, she is. Are they absolutely prepared to cooperate with any of the authorities fully? Yes, I would expect that, and they absolutely must do that. Have they taken legal advice themselves on the position that they're in? Yes, they have. But that's now, for the police are conducting this inquiry, they will come to a conclusion. And frankly, the sooner a line is drawn under this, the better. But
are you baffled why they're looking at it? Because you said there's nothing to see here.
Well, I've no doubt why they're looking at it. It's because the Tory party are prodding it left, right and centre because, you know, and this will be,
They're just protecting their own back, the police.
Look, you know, I'm sure your viewers, if they're asked, you know, what's on your mind at the moment, they will say the health service isn't working properly. I can't get an appointment. It's the 8 o'clock scramble for a GP. I'm really worried about this. I'm on the waiting list. You know, the economy isn't working. I can't make ends meet. Instead of a government then saying, right, we're absolutely laser focused on the issues that matter to you, you've got a government that's spending all of the local election campaign talking about Angela Rayner.
Keir Starmer, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.